Howdy, gang. As always, Kevin here. And I'm going to warn you up front. This subject is probably going to make quite a few of you mad. For different reasons. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. If it makes you mad, that's fine. Trying to adjust my focus here. But I want you to evaluate why it makes you mad. I have had problems with the education system for quite a while now. Nope, before we get into that, let's get into this, because you guys will ask. This is an Ave Maria Dark Night. And as is fitting, I have already poured myself some Toxic Masculinity whiskey. Toxic Masculinity, probably gonna fit with this little talk. I might stretch a little bit longer here than normal because this is a subject that annoys me greatly. I remember going to school and having standards and actually going to school and showing up there and so on and so forth. So, and things have changed greatly over the years. I had 4 children who went through the education system. And my children were both ends of the spectrum. I had one in the honors program, never got any kind of trouble, all kinds of stuff. And then I had another one who was, shall we say, a nonconformist. And a lot of time talking to teachers and principals and vice principals and counselors and so on and so forth because of things that went on. So, I've got to see the entire spectrum of my local school system, and talking to, before you say, well, that's just your school system. Before you say that, I've talked to a lot of parents. You know, I travel around and I talk to parents from all over the United States and all over the world, for that matter. Both when I was in the Navy, and now I'm seeing people from all over the United States, mostly. A few international folks I'm seeing still, and this comes up a lot. And my experiences with the school system are not unique. So, before you say it's just one school system that acts this way, it's not. Like I said, this might stretch a little longer than normal. I will try not to, but it's a big subject, and I've got a lot of opinions on it, as I'm sure you do too. Now, over the years, the education system in general and educators have, for the most part, become lax in actually educating folks, especially at the high school graduate and below level. We're not going to talk about college in this because, quite frankly, college is just indoctrination centers now, for the most part. I got to see that too. After one of my children got into the college system. But we might talk about that, we may not. But anyway, I keep noticing lower and lower standards. I read old textbooks from early on, up till when I was in high school and elementary school and so on and so forth, and my kids' stuff. And I'd be perfectly honest with you. It's just like the rest of society. We just lower standards and don't hold people to standards. You know, when I was going to school, you could actually get held back. If you did not perform at the level you should be performing at the end of that grade, they will actually hold you back and make you repeat a grade. Nowadays, and I actually had teachers tell me this, we don't think it does any good to have kids repeat a grade. Well, here's the deal. If they didn't learn what they were supposed to learn, why are you just shuttling them to the next grade without them knowing what they should have learned this year that they're going to need next year? Well, we just don't think it does any good. Like most of society, we just move things through the system, move problems on, or get rid of problems. I'm noticing that schools now, and well, since my oldest was in school, to my youngest being in school, to grandkids being in school now, and watching things and reading news reports and just watching stuff going on. We don't try very hard to do our job anymore in the education system. When I was in school, you weren't getting extra days off. I joke about snow days, and it was one of those things when I was in school, you were going to school unless the bus could not physically move. Now I see them taking off. Well, there's light snow in the forecast, possibly, with a very, very low percentage chance. And so we're just going to do a 2-hour delay. It's one of those, there's not even any snow on the ground. And you're predicting a 2-hour delay, and now that you've already announced a 2-hour delay, you're obligated to it. So, okay. Now we're already taking 2 hours off tomorrow. And then it doesn't we don't get any precipitation or anything like that. Still, the kids lost 2 hours of education time. Parents had to tell their employer, hey, I'm going to be 2 hours late because I got to do all this. Just like the real world, if there's snow in the forecast, we're just not going in. My entire career of working through before military, after military, several different companies, I had one inclement weather day called the entire time I was working. So that doesn't happen in the real world. School is supposed to be educating our children. Here, let's put it to you this way. Everything in jobs is product and customers. And to make all that stuff happen, you got input variables and output of that. And what the education system seems to have forgotten is, number one, it's your job to educate children in the subject that they are taking. I had one of my children come home from grade school and tell me that her teacher had told her that Republicans don't like this because Republicans just don't like any kind of change. Can you explain to me why a grade school teacher would even bring that up to a grade school student? There is absolutely no reason why an educator at any level should be bringing their politics into the classroom. And I don't care if you're conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, libertarian, what. I don't care if you should not be giving that information to your students, because that's not your job. It just gets ridiculous. Like I said, there's no reason my grade school students should have known what their grade school teacher's politics were. And better yet, They shouldn't have been knocking anybody else's politics because they didn't know what that child's politics was, or what that child's parents' politics were. Well, they probably did in my case, because I'm not very quiet about things, I think. Your customers, as educators, are the parents of the students, and then the local society as a whole, and then educators down the line who are going to have to deal with what you taught these students. Your product is the student, and the grade for your students, how we're going to evaluate your product, is do they actually know what they're supposed to know? When my daughter was going through the college selection process, we went to a whole bunch of different colleges and so on and so forth and watched those people get evaluated and things. And what struck me the most out of the colleges we went to is how many students were showing up at college and were being put into remedial math and remedial English and remedial whatever that they should have learned in high school. So we've got grade schools that don't teach grade school stuff. We've got junior highs and high schools, someplace called middle schools instead of junior high. Anyway, no matter what you call them, K through 12. All right, your job is to get that foundation instilled into those students, and without lowering standards. We do too much lowering standards in the U.S. in general, just to make everybody happy. It's one of those, and the biggest thing I see is educators don't want to be graded on the product they're putting out at all. Against standardized testing. Well, a test is the only way you can determine whether a student learns stuff or not. Too much talking, not enough puffing. Kind of lost my train of thought there a little bit. Anyway, standardized testing. Why don't educators want to be graded on their product? Why don't they want their product evaluated? The only way to know if a student learned what they were supposed to learn, can you add 2 plus 2? Can you string a coherent sentence together? Can you do what you're supposed to be able to do in society at your education level? My state had a new standardized test that came out. Now, I had a whole bunch of educators locally mad at me and statewide mad at me because I was very, very vocal when they did this, because all of the teachers decided, we're not going to go to work today. We're going to, in protest, go to the state house and complain about this new standardized test that they're voting on today. And on top of that, I watched the protests. I chewed all their butts for not being at work, because I can't just take off work and go protest something at the state house anytime a legislation came up that dealt with my job or anything that I had to deal with. But the guys was, this is not a fair test. It's not going to tell whether the students learn anything or not. But they were all walking around with signs going, raise teacher wages too low, need more money, all this other stuff. So what you're telling me is you didn't actually care about the test. You just wanted to make more money to teach to that test, because that's all we do anymore is we teach to the test. When I was in school, you didn't know it was going to be in the test. You better learn the subject matter, because anything that was in there could be on the test. Back when I went to school, if you got in trouble in school, they kept you there longer. They had in-school detention. They had lunch hour detention. They had after-school detention. They had before-school detention. They had summer school. If you weren't towing the line when I was going to school, you were going to be there longer. When my kids were in school, and now, if you're not towing the line and you're not learning the stuff and you're being a pain in the butt, we're just going to send you somewhere else. I had one of my kids, like I said, nonconformist, got in trouble a lot, so I got to see the inner workings of the discipline system and the teaching system and so on and so forth. And there was one time that he got, okay, we're not going to allow you to go to school for X number of weeks. We're going to give you packets to do at home, and then you're going to come in like once a week and get those graded. Well, we did that for a couple of weeks. And I went in there for the first meeting that we were supposed to have, and the biggest crux of the meeting was, or the biggest focus of the meeting was, is they had a new form that they used to talk to students and talk to parents about how the kids were being bad. They had no standards in their discipline system, which one of those, they were working off demerits at the time, and once you scored so many demerits, they sent you home, basically. Now, anyone who worked at the school could give you demerits. There was no standardized, okay, you did this, so that's 5 demerits. You did this, so that's 2 demerits. They could go basically anything they wanted to do. It's one of those, and everybody from the janitor to the principal could give you a demerit. There was no review process. One of the things that we talked about a lot at those particular meetings, we'll get to the grading stuff here in a minute, was this is how we got on this form thing. They were very proud of their form, which they didn't actually use, because it was tips, teachers informing parents and students. Well, the parents never got informed. They didn't mail those home. They didn't do anything like that. They handed them to the student and said, go home and tell your dad about this. How many of you went home voluntarily and got yourself in more trouble? Now, I taught my kids that, number one, you get in trouble, you're in trouble. Number two, you are dishonest about being in trouble, then you're in trouble twice. Okay? A lot of parents aren't like that. So, but anyway, this demerit process, after they'd explained to me everything that was going on in there, I said, well, there's no review? And they, what do you mean there's no review? I said, well, I'm looking right here at these demerits, and he got demerits for basically eating candy. But then again, you've got another teacher here. Candy was a bad thing in that particular school system. You weren't supposed to be eating candy in class and in the hallways and all that kind of stuff, which, fine, whatever. But you had certain teachers who would give the kids candy, the students candy, and then the next teacher who saw them with the candy would give them a demerit for the candy that the other teacher gave them. Now, there was no review process where, well, such and such a teacher gave me this. It's one of those, well, no, too bad, you're getting a demerit. You're getting 7 demerits. You're getting 15 demerits because I'm having a bad day. It's one of those, and when I asked about that, I was basically told there didn't need to be a review process because it was up and up. I said, well, I looked at schools all over the U.S. who use the demerit system, and every one of them, except for you, had a review process, had a standardized list of demerits they could give, and basically I was told, well, we've got this new form. And I go, we need to get off the form. The form doesn't work. We've already proved that. And number two, why aren't you going to tell me why there's no review process? Well, basically, I never got told. Okay? Now, the first time we turned in a packet, we went in, so I slid the packet across the desk to this. There was a lady teacher there who was supposedly coordinating all this. And I'll close this up soon. We'll probably have to do 2 or 3 on this one. But basically, she snatched up the packet and went that fast, look at 4 or 5 pages, and laid it on the table. And she goes, well, page 4 is wrong, page 3 is this one's okay, that's okay. And 15 minutes later, she's going, oh, wait a minute. That one page that I told you was wrong is probably okay. And I go, what do you mean it's probably okay? Number one, there's no way you looked at those. You thumbed through them way too fast. And number two, what do you mean? Is it okay or is it not okay? Because you're telling me I have to monitor my student and tell him what he's doing right. Now, you tell me, is it right or is it wrong? Now, let's go back, because this is the same teacher who told me I did not have a right to have copies of the records on all of the stuff that they were supposedly doing. And I said, well, this stuff has got my student's name on it, and it's got my name on it, so you are going to give me copies of it. And basically, I was offered, well, if you want to come in and make copies, we'll give you copies of it. And I go, no, you're not going to do that. But I digress. The education system as a whole, and educators in general, for the most part, now don't get me wrong, there are good teachers out there and there are bad teachers out there, just like any profession. Unfortunately, the percentage of teachers who are just phoning it in and are just there to get tenure and all that kind of stuff, the percentage is way high. I remember several of my teachers, and because I learned from them, not because of other things. I'm watching this little thing go around the internet right now about, I want to be this kind of teacher. I want to be fun. I want to be this. I want to do this. And there wasn't a single thing on it about, I want the students to learn. Not a single thing. It's one of those, I want to be remembered for how fun I was. It's not your job to be fun. It's your job to educate the students. That's what your job is. Now, if you can educate them through those things, that's fine. But your primary focus should not be, I was remembered because I was the fun teacher. I will probably just let this go here because this has gone longer than I want it to. So feel free to chime in. You can be mad at me if you want to be, but I want you to evaluate why you're mad. And in that context, I want you to evaluate why you're mad at me instead of mad at an education system who is failing our students, who has failed our students. I watch early release days. I watch teacher in service days, and those just keep going up and up and up and up and up and up. Basically, it's our students don't spend that much time in education, and the last couple of years of the pandemic has proven just how useless it is for us to send our students to those places. Thanks for your views. Thanks for your support. Like, view, and subscribe. All that other stuff that I'm supposed to say at these things. Thanks for watching. Sorry if you're mad.